Good evening. I believe we should be live. And I have been gone and have been sick for the last couple weeks. And so tonight I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about smartphone photography in particular. Um and I guess just how photography has been changed in general overall. And um so my first kind of point on here is in the era of smartphones and everyone having a camera on them, how has this changed photography? So my first thought on this is the idea that we used to have a time period where photographers were very, specific people that their intent, their tool is their camera. Just like a painter has a paintbrush, a sculptor, uses their clay and other materials, and a you know drawer uses a pencil or pencils or ink. There's all sorts of different artists, right? And as a photographer, I use my camera as my tool to capture the essence of the scene or the object or whatever I'm trying to capture, the story I'm trying to tell, the light that I'm capturing inside that box that then later I'm going to show to the world. And so the idea is, now that smartphones are out there, how has this affected that? And I think that there are some positives and some negatives. And so, first, I want to talk about how art has been affected um, by the idea of everyone has a camera, everyone has a tool in their pocket. And so, how has the art of photography been affected? And I think that initially, everyone kind of thinks, oh, it's great because, I don't have to hire anyone. I can just take them myself. Or, I don't have to worry about missing a memory because I can just take them myself. But I think that one of the things that also did is it kind of degraded photography as an art and as a means that's very specific and as a study in a way. And so, if you want somebody that, no, it's like you can put different things in the kitchen. You can put somebody in a kitchen with, flour, sugar, butter, eggs, all the stuff that they need. And you can give them a recipe, but it doesn't mean it's going to come out the same as if you taught them, as if they studied it. And even with a recipe, doesn't mean it's going to come out the same. And so I think that the idea of everybody having a camera, people think that then they have all the tools, they have the recipe of what it takes to create this art, to create a beautiful image, to create an essence of the scene and what it is. And while they're sort of right, I feel like that there's also a necessity for people to realize that there still is a need to hire somebody to photograph, weddings or different events. If you want somebody who's going to capture that and capture it in the correct exposure and understand color, and not just for the idea of like they're not going to treat it like an art and you're not going to have like this surrealistic look and they're not going to just click like auto HDR, but the idea of, as a person, would you not want a memory captured as close to and as accurate as possible? And I think that when it comes to photography, even using a smartphone, you can learn to do that, but it's a forgotten aspect. Photography dates way back to the 1800s. The very first photograph that was done was quite literally, I mean, the word camera being Latin for dark room. The very first scene that was captured was of a mountain top, and it was just barely looks like anything. But this guy, he's out and he gets into like this shed, and he notices a hole, and through the hole is an image inverted upside down of this scene. So the idea that we've gone from that to something, like this in our pocket that has multiple lenses, that has different sensor sizes. The idea that art in general, I feel like, is a forgotten tool and a forgotten trade and underappreciated. And so when we pull out our smartphones and we go to take these images and we go to do these things, do we demean the sense of what it means to be a photographer? And people are throwing around, all these terminologies and not even really understanding what they mean when people talk about like color science. That quite literally is a term that 99.9% of the time that I hear that term used, I cringe because it's not used correctly. What I think people mean is color accuracy. I think what people mean is calibration of their monitor and print profiles, and I think that's what people need to study. I think that people are out there and they own a bunch of cameras and they own this stuff and they use it all the time, but they don't study it. I studied it, and I need to get back into using it more and more. I paid out all this money and spent these years studying it, going through the courses, learning the terminology, learning how to create, using the spider colorimeter to calibrate a monitor and to create creating profiles for printers. See, you could quite literally create images on a display that's not calibrated, as long as you understand the numbers within Photoshop and other programs, and you learn the zone system, and you learn how all that comes together, and you create prints, and then you use the tool to scan the prints and adjust the profile that's native within the print, the printer, the drivers, and have that adjust. These are things that are necessities to, if you want to reproduce the image as accurately as possible, and we're sending them to each other, and people are using displays at different brightnesses, displays from different companies, and they're saying, well, this looks awful, but are any of them using like a color, an actual color accurate display? Like, for example, I'm sitting on an iMac, but if I adjust the brightness, I have it all the way up. If I did a scan, it's going to create a profile and it's going to calibrate it, and I'm going to have to adjust the brightness within a range. There's a tool that's going to get it, and then it's going to calibrate. But if I bump that brightness or adjust it at all, I have to then recalibrate it. People don't understand this. They think, oh, I got a phone that's got DCI-P3 color gamut, and they think I got a computer that has this and that. But the minute you increase or decrease brightness, you are changing the potential maximum in output of that display, and you are also changing the minimum, and you are compressing that. And so this is information that I feel like people need to really think about and people really need to understand. And so it comes into all aspects of technology, but really this has affected the art because there's not an appreciation, and there's not people that like that's their job. There's just people that think that, oh, I got a phone in my pocket and I can take a photo and I'm going to share it with everybody, and everybody should think it's great, when there's I feel like there's not an appreciation then for that versus like the beautiful work that I've seen people produce. I mean, Del Von Digital creates beautiful work drawing on his tablets and taking photographs. There's numbers of people within the tech community, within the space, that create beautiful images, and then there's some that do it and don't even understand how they're doing it. And while you might think it's great, but like that means it's not reproducible. That means they don't understand it. That means like maybe they're creating images by accident. And photography is an intentional act. It's a science. It's a study. It's a complexity. It's a history, and it's something that used to be used to capture moments so that people down the line can reappreciate and re-understand what happened as accurately as possible. And like photojournalism, the idea of that versus like photo art and photo realism and photo like pictography and like all these different types of photography, but like we capture these scenes and we don't understand that like the idea of capturing the color of somebody's shirt or the light as close to as that instant as possible. Like, do you want that to fall upon the shoulders of somebody who's really not trained in that? And if you enjoy it, study it, do it, appreciate it, but also understand, like, if I make a comment to you, like, I'm doing this because I want people to understand and I want people to, like, appreciate it and I want people to learn. And I do it from a side of, like, I'm not out there making a bunch of money doing this, but I come from it with experience and knowledge, and like I have a certification in it, which is what they call, a 2-year degree in it and that's, the closest I could get. 4-year colleges aren't even really doing photo degrees anymore. They're doing art degrees, but I went to a community college, but that community college was the second best college or university in the United States, apart from Rochester Institute of Technology in New York, area at the time, and still has people that are there, professors that are there that went to RIT. And so, like, the idea of, like, I'm not tooting my own horn, but, like, I have such enthusiasm that I want people to grow and I want people to understand and appreciate and learn about the technology that's in their pocket, including myself, including what you can do with it, including what it really just doesn't do well, what it needs to keep up with. I mean, I've gone to using my regular camera, my Sony A6100, for live streams here because, I mean, just the idea of the natural fall off. There's nothing artificial about that. Look at the color tones and the detail in there, right? I try to do that with my smartphone, and it's just juddery mess because of the auto switching. It doesn't stay put. It wants to change. You can go into pro modes, but even that creates a problem because ISO, you can set it. You can set certain things, but will it adjust to the color? Will it do that within video accurately? If I color changes here, do I have to manually adjust that? Those are things that like are beneficial in our smartphones. The idea that I can take a photo and I can send it off, but at the same time, if I wanted that convenience, you can connect your regular camera to your smartphone via cable or wireless, send those images to it, and then fire those off to somebody. Be like, hey, take a look at these. Or here, have these I hire somebody as an editor. Here, have these to edit. I think the idea that the technology that's in our pocket makes things easier doesn't mean that it makes things better or makes things right. And it's sad that people like look at these people that take photos all the time, and just because they do more of it and just because they create some beautiful work, I've come to realize that people don't have a true understanding of what it really means. They just think they do, and that's, I hope, something I would love to see change. Something I would love to see the people that are out here, using this technology, using their smartphones, using their DSLRs, actually learning the terminology, learning the technology, showing the techniques, studying it, really comparing technologies between devices in a controlled stance rather than like outside in an environment where, a cloud shifting just slightly technically is going to change the scene, so you're not comparing equal for equal. I've talked about this before. So my next point here is, how has sharing been drastically changed? So we think back to the days of, you had days where people were taking photos and they were, printing out, and you shake the photo and, you'd wait a couple minutes and you show it, right? Polaroids. We had days where people were creating prints from, 8x10s, 4x5s, mass technology, that people were doing all sorts of things with how they would share these, right? You'd print them yourself at home. Some people would. That's what my parents did. Or you would send them into a print lab, or like you would go to your local you go to your local newspaper. Like my parents go to the local newspaper printing place because they do photo prints. So you go there and you get your stuff printed. But if you don't understand, they understand how it works, so they will adjust things. They will do a test print, and if it doesn't come out right, they'll adjust so that your images don't come out too orange or yellow. But you go to Meijer or Walmart or Sam's Club or any of your local, some of those places, they'll just print it, and it turns out orange, it turns out yellow, and you don't understand why. And so I think that let's see here. I'll approach a question. I'm gonna finish my last topic, and then I'm gonna go to things in the chat here real quick. And so, I think the aspect of like appreciating that it's a science and you can be flawed and you don't have to understand it, but bring your images to somebody who does, share them to somebody who does, take criticism, take critiques, understand color profiles, take it to a place that's going to print it professionally. You're going to spend less money because it's going to be done right the first time. You're not going to have to pay to have multiple prints and travel back and forth. You're not going to go online and find some special place. Look for these places. Look to see if your local newspaper has that. And lastly, kind of on this, and then I'm going to continue into photography stuff, but and talk about some other tech stuff. But what's good and bad about these things? The good thing is that everybody has the opportunity to learn, because not only does this device have a camera, or multiple cameras, but it's connected, and you can share directly, and you can get response, and you can get feedback instantly. But it's up to you if you want to, and it's up to you to share it with the right people that will criticize you, that will understand you, that will appreciate, and it's up to you to say, hey, give me feedback. And then at the same time, also the idea that you can, submit those to a print shop and have them printed and maybe to you the next day or 2 days later is incredible. And you can get all sorts of canvas prints and things like that done. That's the good. And that there's AI there to help you, and so you can use it as a point and shoot. And then as you learn, you can go in and you can edit those. And there's things like Pro Raw, and there's things like Expert Raw, and there's things like Full On Raw. And you can go in and you can learn to then adjust the raw images, adjust the exposure, shadows, highlights, adjust the blacks, the whites, the exposure, color in each channel. You can adjust all this. You can learn, and that's great. But the bad thing is that everybody thinks they can do it because they have access to it. Back in the days when, really cameras were, a good camera was actually pretty expensive in film, people were motivated to learn to do it, especially people who did it on their own. Now you can buy a printer, you can use anything, and you can print it at home, and people think, oh, it's a great image, but there's complexity to it, there's fineness to it. It's like the difference between somebody buying an at-home brew kit and somebody who's a brewmaster or a working in a vineyard. There's a difference in that. And so those are kind of the good and bad things. And those are kind of my thoughts on this. Some things I've had stirring. If you want to, get into the conversation, obviously in the comment section after I'm done with this, do so. Let me know what you all think. I'm going to go into and talk about and approach some of these things in the chat here. So Charles Monroe brought up something here. Since Apple controls photography on social, people think if it's not Apple, it sucks, and that's sad. Sort of true. So because Apple's the only one that makes iPhones, they can control the experience. And so typically when you take a photo with an iPhone, I can take a photo within certain apps and share them, and I don't have to go outside to the main app and I can get a pretty good image. But that's not always the case, and that's not always true. And actually, like today, I took a photo of my son, and I was using the front-facing camera sitting in this room. It wasn't very bright in here, and I just took a photo of him next to me and sent it to my wife. And it turned out great, and I was using Facebook Messenger on my S22 Ultra. Well, Apple does control the experience, and it tends to be a little bit more optimized. It doesn't have to suck coming from other. I mean, how simple is it that you can pull out your phone? I mean, how difficult is it to pull out your phone, right? Take a picture. And, hit the share button and share it or post it right there, right? It doesn't have to be difficult to take an image and, and not have it be done within the app. I understand that like Snapchat has filters and stuff, but like there's a laziness to it, and that's part of what I was talking about. Like if you really are going to be good at it and you really are going to understand the complexity of it, then just do better. Like take the one extra step. Or don't complain when it doesn't turn out right. I mean, Twitter compresses all photos. Double-edged sword, I think photography tech today has gotten good enough that it has gotten a lot more people interested in it. Yes. I think interest versus like truly understanding and being able to do it are two different things, and it's nice, and I'm great people are interested in it. And I'm great for the idea that like I don't have a lot of Instagram followers or a ton of Twitter, but like the ones that I do, and I get people liking stuff, and I can just sit here and I can share it, and I can have 100 or however many, a couple hundred or a few hundred people that will just be like, oh, I like that photo. And I don't have to go to like some photo lab and print it off and send it out to all those people and have all their addresses and pay all that money to do that. Is a great thing about it, and that's great. And I understand that there's a necessity for instance like type for your nieces here, 95% of my family just point and shoot when you talk about the whole picture, the massive, just pointing that out. Yeah, so the masses, that's what they'll do, and it'll be good enough. But I think that also is a discussion that needs to come into play, and a story that needs to be told to keep it going, so that generations down the line, our generations, and continued generations appreciate that it's, capturing a moment that in time for memories, and the link to it, and maybe the smells, the sensations, all that linked to the aspect of what photography really means to you, and are you dedicated enough to it, and do you want to capture those memories of your family, of those times, to really put the time into it, or are you okay with like, I don't need to learn it. I'm just gonna snap photo, and that's okay to do too. Like in every day-to-day situation, you want to take a photo of your kid every day from birth till 18. Cool, but there are still certain instances in which we need to really understand, and I feel like appreciate those times and make sure that we look to the right people and hire the right people to do that, which is still happening. Howdy, Ike. Um, and so this kind of holds true with all technology, and things I've been thinking about lately is like, where does technology lead us down the line? Where do smartphones go with photography? We're getting to the point where stuff can be removed, stuff can be altered, stuff can be made to look like it was moving when it wasn't. And I feel like, while that's cool and while that's great and while that's stuff that's been around, Apple, several years ago. I mean, we're talking what, iPhone, what was it, iPhone 8, iPhone 10 when those came out, I think. That you could, with motion images, that you can do the whole, basically like a time lapse or like a blur or different things like that when that really wasn't happening. And you can, take a picture of a waterfall and then go in there and select, or you could have like a bounce effect. You could do all sorts of things, right, with that. And when does it come to the point where we start to appreciate authentic images again? I understand it's okay to alter them. You want to get the right exposure. You want to get the right scene. You can only capture so much. You're not going to bring a bunch of lights out there necessarily. So you get the image as close to as possible, and then you go in and you bring down the highlights and bump up the shadows, and you control things later. And then there's the aspect of, oh, I don't really want it to look like it. I saw something else, and I'm doing this for artistic point. But like, when does the alteration of what's actually happening go too far? And this has already happened. There's been companies that have been caught where they were replacing photos of the moon with images that were taken with 600-700 millimeter lenses on full frame Canon cameras, and they were using that as their like press image, claiming that this was taken on that device. There are aspects now where even Google has even talked about, like, you take a photo at an event and other people are there, that it's going to use those angles to be able to like remove things. The idea of like, you can take a picture and there's a fence there and somebody else took a picture from a different angle that doesn't get the fence in the way, and it can combine that learned AI to incorporate and create something different. Do we want photography to be true, or do we want to just capture a scene that's as most like beautiful as possible? And I think that's where we're seeing photography change. And so, like, what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about, like, is it okay for that? Are there times for that? What would you rather have? I think for me, I'll take a picture of my son and I'll like adjust it and it looks like super HDR, whatever. And that's cool, but then there's like events and where I'll have something and I use my regular camera because I want to be able to capture that with like the natural actual bokeh and adjust the exposure simply and get the most accurate image. And I can zoom in and out and I can capture them at a fraction of a second, and I don't have to worry about any blur and all this stuff, right? There's a beauty in what is done with it. And then you have like people that are taking those photographs and they're bringing them in and they're painting over them in digital art. And I think that is a really cool aspect of where we're seeing this go. And we're getting to the point where people are able to deep fake, images of people, and we're getting to the point of memes, and we're getting to the point of where our technology is shifting, and it's changing how we view the way things that were done in the past and the way that they're done now. And that's great, but that's also kind of devastating in a way to think that, like, oh, you don't need to worry about it because it can be fixed. Software can alter it. Software can make it look real. Software can do this. Software can do that. And so, excuse me, drink of water real quick. I think this is how photography has changed. And some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad, some ways it's improved, some ways it's kind of shifted in a direction that I would like to see kind of change again. And it's great that we have new tools, but I feel like we should use these new tools in the way that the old technology was used still, so that we don't degrade the meaning of the art, the science, behind it. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about as far as photography, as far as that aspect of things. The next thing I kind of want to talk about here is what I've been thinking about when it comes to how people view my content and how people view content on general on YouTube, and how people view, what they're watching on here. And so this was a discussion that kind of was going on Twitter, but I feel like this appeals to everyone. So you come to a channel and you're watching a video, and some content is quite literally to like motivate you to buy whatever they're talking about, right? Because that's how they make money. They have links in there, there's sponsorships. Even if they're not sponsored, they might have a link, and so you go, you buy that product, they make money. Affiliate programs, or just to motivate people to watch the whole thing because it's something they want to learn about. So they're educating themselves to determine, to learn more about a product that they've bought, or to determine if it can do what they want it to do before they buy it, or to come to realize, oh, I bought it, but I haven't used it, I haven't opened it yet, and you know what? It can't do what I thought it could do. And so I've been thinking about the direction of where my channel is going, and where it would be awesome to see people kind of think about when they're talking about products, when they're talking about technology, when they're talking about the device that's in their pocket, the device that they're using, that it would be from an aspect of how it's used, more than like, I'm trying to sell you, I'm trying to convince you. Like, I feel like so many videos are, oh, this is awesome, oh, this is whatever. Okay, how? Cool, you got, you do this and this and this with it throughout your day, and you got this much battery life. But like, how does that give meaning to, like, how does that benefit me? Create an experience that's emotion, create an experience that motivates me to understand why the tool that you're telling me, that you're showing me, the device that you're showing me, the app that you're showing me, why should I use that? Why should I come back to your channel for more stuff? How are your other videos going to also benefit me? Because you know what? Viewers have a right to be selfish. Like, they have the right to appeal to you and go, hey, what are you doing that's beneficial to me? Don't, And other people are like, oh, I just want to know, can I do this? Cool. I want to know some tips and tricks. Cool. There's great videos on that. But I feel like so much of what's out there has become a pitch. There's very little, or it's completely entertaining. Where's the knowledge that I can't get elsewhere? The stuff that I can't just find on a Google search. The detailed how to do, the information on what's changed, the information how to do that with a certain device. Something that can't just be simply found with a Google search. Other than if I Google it, I might get a link to your video. These are things that I've noticed more and more are not out there. And so as I am coming back and getting back into this and getting back into the wraps of it, and I've been doing a lot more live streams because I really like the idea of being able to approach this and interact with the chat. And Jason C, coming in here, and different people coming in here and hopping in the stream and just having this interactive discussion and just talking about what's on my mind is awesome. And so I feel like this is something that more of us need to do. This is something that more of us need to appeal to, that more of us need to approach to, that more of us need to think about. But we also need to be able to have fun with what we're watching. And I throw in little puns here and there and a little bit aspect of personality and sense of humor. And so talking about what distinguishes my content from other people, but I also wonder what distinguishing factor is there in the content that you guys like to watch? What is it that draws you to watch me? What is it that draws you to watch, the specific channels that you do watch, or click on the certain videos that you do click on? Those are things that the data can sort of tell, but it's not really there anymore. And so, if you're watching this, thank you for being here. If you want to share out my videos, you want to share out when I live stream, greatly appreciated. It's one of my favorite aspects of being able to do what I'm able to do is talking about all the different technology and enjoying it and enjoying the experiences with it and enjoying how detailed you can get into it and thinking about different things from different approaches, different aspects. You have these devices that we carry every day, and they're running different operating systems or using different apps or being used as different tools for different purposes and have different benefits and different pros and cons. And we look at these things and we look at each other and we look at life and we think, wow, this is amazing what it can do, or I wish this could do more without, but then where's the sacrifice on it? And so lately I've been thinking about do companies need to provide more, or do people need to realize that by asking for more they're going to receive less in other areas? Because if you want a device to be able to do all that amazing stuff and to benefit and improve the software on it, then at the same time you're going to sacrifice. You're going to sacrifice on your battery life. You're going to sacrifice on camera quality because it's just not going to become a necessity anymore. If you want a device to become a computer replacement and a camera replacement and all this stuff, that's extra cost, that's extra expenses, that's multitudes of software, that's potentially adjusting the BIOS introductory software so that you can boot into one or the other. Yeah, DeX exists, but it still has its issues. It's also convincing all developers to develop for one device with a bunch of different user interfaces potentially on it. And as we see, developers already pick a lot of times to develop apps for the Apple App Store instead of a Google Play Store because we only have to develop it to work for specific aspect ratios and specific hardware. And now you want them to have to develop it for not only a multitude of hardware on the Android side, but also different interfaces that not everybody's going to use. And, maybe the 1% of people that will use it. And they say, well, the more it's there, the more people that will use it. Not necessarily true, because this stuff has been around for a while. There were companies that were doing this for a while. Microsoft's pitch on Continuum and Motorola Atrix, and we're coming up on Android 13 is going to come out, and we've been looking at since before Android 10. There's been desktop modes and stuff out there, and there's been apps and interfaces for this, and there's been companies pushing this, but Google themselves don't even take it seriously enough to incorporate a desktop mode into the Pixel. On the optimized Ultimum hardware, they don't take it seriously enough to make it work on their own. Not even a video mirroring mode. And this is what I see where like people want to use technology for more than what it's there, but at the same time that's not the intention of it. And it's like, oh yeah, well, why should I have to buy all this and that? I don't know. Why is a donut, not a slice of cheese? Like, seriously, buying the tools, like, be there. Yes, it's under the developing options for people, for it to be easy if you want to. Yes. But the crazy thing is, like, even if I turn it on my Pixel, Google's blocked it. Every other, like, OnePlus and all these other companies, like, if you turn it, LG, you turn it on, you plug it in, they either have their own or it's the default one. But the default one isn't that good because, like I said, they're just not. And it's devastating because, like, I would love to be able to take this device right here because it is quite powerful and it is, beautiful, and it is substantially powerful enough to do. Like, I could be live streaming from it right now. But the real problem is, like, I can connect my audio interface up because I can plug that into my monitor, and I can connect a wireless and keyboard and mouse up, and I could set it up and use the camera from it. But, like, if I want to use my actual camera, it won't accept external video sources as a webcam. There's no way to, like, install the drivers for that. There's no, like, built-in thing that just will be like, you know what? Oh, your camera can be recognized as a webcam. Let me install install a driver for it. There's nothing that allows for these things. And so the limitations are on the OEMs and what they decide to allow. And so it depends on what you're doing. I understand I'm just doing content creation, but at the same time, it's like, well, if all you want to do is hook it up to use it to do a split screen and do, minimal tasks like that, yeah, that's cool. But, like, at the same time, you could probably buy a much cheaper smartphone that doesn't have that stuff, and then buy, like, a smaller, you could use like a Raspberry Pi, or buy like a Mac Mini, or like a small computer like that, or like a cheap laptop or a Chromebook, and do a lot of those things. The idea of being able to go beyond that and actually really benefit from the tool that's in our pocket as a computer is really limited by developers and development, and by even Samsung's themselves. When they announced it, like, oh yeah, 4K output, that'll be there. And and it's limited. And the highest I've seen is connecting up like my Fold, when I had my Z Fold and I had my Z Fold 3, they both did 1440p output on my 1440p monitor, and if I connected it to a TV, it was 1440p. My S22 Ultra is full HD. It's limited. It won't output 1440p on my 1440p monitor or on a 4K TV, even though my adapters and everything support that. So that's a limitation, and then you're getting lower pixel density, lower resolution, um, and that also means you don't get as much space to put things in because if you try to make it smaller, the font is not as clear to read. So like the idea of there are things you can do, but it's just not there yet, and the support isn't there, and the companies themselves don't seem to be taking it as serious. But it brings me to another thing. I've been watching some of these videos that people have been putting out about Huawei and like the monitor that they just released. And there's this interface in which you can, and they have a computer out there too that's kind of like an iMac, but it's there. It's running Windows, I believe, and then it's got their software on it. And so you just go down to the bar and you click this menu and it pops up, and it's like the smart interface in which all your other devices that you've signed in show up there, and basically your computer will be like in the middle, and then the other ones are like in these bubbles around it with their name, and you can just grab it and drag it to it, and it will connect. So if you have your phone, you had a Huawei P50 sitting there, or the tablet, or a folding phone, or a flip phone, or whatever sitting there, you just drag it and bring it to the icon of the computer, and they connect, and now you can launch apps from the phone, kind of like your phone, like the Your Phone utility. They changed the name on that recently, I believe. And the idea that you can do all this stuff, and it just works. You've signed into the account, so it's set up, and you do it once. And the ease of that is just something that like I've used the Samsung ecosystem, and they just don't make it as easy. And you're signing into Google accounts and Samsung accounts, and you're signing into all this stuff. Huawei seems to be making it really easy as far as like to pair if you sign in on your computer, and then let's say you get a smartphone and you need to set, or you have a smartphone and you need to set up another device, QR codes for setting things up, signing into your Huawei account when it starts up. Why other companies aren't doing this, and I hate the fact that Huawei got banned, because it's not then pushing companies. It's not pushing Apple. It's not pushing Samsung. It's not pushing Google. It's not. These companies can get away with so much in the U.S., and I understand we're only a portion of the market, but it's also affected other portions of the market, Europe and Canada and all these other countries that have also started to ban, and that are it's more difficult to get access in, and there's limitations on what they're allowed to do. And the fact that the competition is being reduced to by that is very pathetic. And anyways, that's kind of what I had to talk about tonight. I want to thank you all for coming in. Thanks to Tech for Needs for coming on by, Sharkfin, Chris, Battery Powered, Jason C., Charles Monroe, anybody else who came by. Thank you to you all. I'd stay a little bit longer, but my throat's starting to hurt a bit, and I need to let that rest. I will see you all hopefully later this week. My plan is to still live stream Wednesday before Eric's stream. And if you don't see me then, I'll be back next week, Sunday or Monday, probably Sunday. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. If you didn't already, give it a big thumbs up. Please tweet this out, share this live stream, and have a good rest of your week. Peace out. Thanks, everybody.